Hello guys, welcome back. Today we're gonna build our CI/CD pipeline. Okay, so what we need and the first thing to do is to make sure that we have a code and that the developer push a code to a repository. This time we're gonna use GitHub as our repository, right? So the developer gonna push the code, right? And then the next thing we're gonna do is to clone the code. As you guys can see, the developer has pushed the code like 2 days ago, and now it is time for us to do some testing. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to clone it, git clone, right? Then I'm going to open a terminal. Let me open a terminal. Then I'm going to bring the terminal wire. Let me make it a little bit bigger. So what I'm going to do is git clone and I'm going to paste it. But before I do that, sorry, I want a CD into the desktop so I can have my code handy, right? So I'm going to do git clone here and I'm going to clone it. So it's going to take a little bit of time. Oh, it's done. So it didn't take that much time. So we have cloned our repository. The next thing to do is to make sure that we can use a code or a text editor, right? Or something else. But for us, what we're going to use is we're going to use a Visual Studio Code. So I'm going to open my Visual Studio Code. Okay, it's going. Okay, I have it right now. Right here, sorry. So the next I'm going to do is to go to File, Open Folder. Let me make it bigger. File, Open Folder, and I'm going to look for desktop, right? Then I'm going to have my project right here. It's going to be eagle1.project, right? -project, sorry. I'm going to open it. This is my project. The next thing you need to do as a DevOps engineer is to make sure that you understand how to run the application, right? That is what we're going to do next. So to understand how the application works, the first thing you need to do is to talk with the developer, right? For example, I talked with the developer and we went over the Docker file, right? And he told me that he's using Maven as a compiler. That is the Spring Boot or is a Java application, right? And he's using Maven to compile it, right? So I know that I need to use Maven. The second thing he told me is that the application port is port 8080, right? So I know that. And it says that the port is using an environment variable, right? And it gave me the environment variable. It told me that if I go to source main, I think it's resource and property, I'm going to see the URL, the environment variable I need to use. So instead of localhost, I'm going to put the database name right here, right? And or the database servers, especially, right? Right here. So that is what I know. So now the next thing for me to run this kind of application, I use Docker Compose because it's very easy and it's local, right? So let's go ahead now and see how we can install because we need a compiler, right? So we need to install Maven locally. So for me to install Maven, I'm going to go to the search bar and I'm going to put install Maven using Windows 11 on Windows 11 using Chocolatey, right? Because I'm using Windows. If you are using another OS, go ahead and change Windows 11 and put that OS. For me, it's going to be Chocolatey software 395, right? And you can accept the term if you want. And this is the command. And to install it, make sure that when you open a terminal, you are a administrator. You are opening the terminal as a administrator. So let's assume that we already installed it, right? The next thing we need to do is to test the application locally. So we went over the Docker file with the developer, and as you can see, the port is 8080. So we need a directory called target, but if you see over here, we don't have that directory, right? So I can either pass the command wire or I can use other stuff, but I'm going to pass the command wire. The first thing I need to make sure is just to double check to make sure that Maven is installed. So I'm going to do mvn space --version. As you can see, my Maven is installed. I also have my Java and everything is working fine. So I'm going to clear it. So the next thing I'm going to do is to pass some Maven command just to make sure that Maven is working properly, right? I'm going to do mvn clean. Let's see what's going to happen. The cleaning went right. Everything went well. So the next thing I'm going to do is Maven package. The goal is to build a jar file, right, or a WAR file, but this time we're going to build a jar file. So I'm going to do Maven package and let's run it. You guys can see it's compiling, right? We have some issue, but that's fine. So the build was successful, right? And if you see right here, you're going to see that we have a new directory called target. And if you go over it, you're going to see that we have new files. And one of the files is called knode-java that -1.0.0.jar, right? This is our jar file that we need to build. This is the jar file that we're going to use into the Docker file. We're going to copy into the Docker file, right? So we are good. So we already build our jar, right? So the next thing to do is to build a Docker compose, right? In order for me to do that, I'm just going to type over here on text or somewhere else. Then I'm going to click on add. Then I'm going to add a new file, right? And I'm going to call my file docker -compose, right? Then I'm going to put that YAML. It's a YAML file. The next thing I'm going to do is to put the version of my Docker compose, right? Version : I'm going to put version 3. Then I'm going to add services. The first service I'm going to add is going to be the web application, right? And I'm going to have the name of the image, the Docker image called keynote, right? And since we need to add an environment, right? You guys can see I can do autocomplete, so I don't have to type all that. So the environment variable that we have was it was Mongo. I think it was like Mongo underscore URL. Is the developer use MongoDB database. I'm going to put the value, right? So we said the value was Mongo DB : // we're going to call our database Mongo, right? And it's going to be listening on port 27017/dev, right? And let's make sure that before we create the service that the database is working already. So we're going to do depends on. As you can see, we can autocomplete it. And the service that we're going to need is called Mongo. This service via the database pod or the database container, right? Mongo. So the port for our application, the port for our application will be port 8080, and we want it to on port 8080 as well. So the other application or the other port gonna be, we say Mongo, right? It's right there, Mongo. And it's going the image gonna be, we are using a MongoDB, right? So it's gonna be, the image gonna be Mongo database, and the port is gonna be a port, I think it's port 27017. So this is how I'm gonna do my Docker compose file, right? But I don't want to use my Visual Studio Code. So what I'm gonna do is this, right? I'm gonna use my terminal, right? This one, I think. Yes, this one. So I'm gonna clear it. If I do ls, I'm gonna see that I do have like this is the desktop. So I'm gonna cd into eagle1 hyphen project, right? And if I do ls, I'm gonna see that we have Docker compose wire. So make sure that you have Docker installed on. Make sure that you have Docker installed on in your computer. Let's assume that you already installed Docker in your computer, right? So the next thing I'm going to do is this, right? I'm going to do Docker. I can do hyphen version just to make sure that Docker is installed, right? And I do have my Docker version, right? So I'm going to clear everything, and I'm going to do Docker compose, and I'm going to do up, right? You can put -d if you want it to run in detach, but you're not going to be able to see logs, right? But I want to see the logs, so I'm going to remove it, and I'm going to press enter, and let's see what is happening. You guys can see the logs. And you guys can see why it says what? It says what? Starter kernel Java application, right? So let's open another Windows. Let me make it a little bit bigger and do Docker PS, right? To see. And oh, it's too big. Let me make it like this. And you're going to see that we have two applications or two containers running, right? The first one going to be this one, and the second one going to be this one, right? So we said it is on port 8080, right? Let's open a new Windows and do localhost and do colon 8080. This is how our application should look, right? So is working locally. So the next thing we're going to do is to make sure that we set up Jenkins properly to run the pipeline, right? So let's go on and do it. So the next thing we're going to do is to make sure that our Jenkins server is set up properly to handle our code, right? So we use three main things when we before running our Docker compose, right? The first thing is that we need to have Git installed, and the second thing was that we needed to have Maven installed, right? And the third thing is that we needed to have Docker installed to run Docker compose. So we're going to make sure that our Jenkins server has those three. And I'm going to show a different way of doing that, right? Starting by using a CLI to install our Docker in our Jenkins server, right? Since our Jenkins is deployed on AWS, what we're going to do is that we're going to go on EC2. First, you log into our AWS, you go on EC2, you go on running. We're going to use the Bastion host because our Jenkins server is a private node, so there's no public IP address. So to access it, we need to use a jumper, right? So we're going to use a Bastion host as a jumper, right? We're going to go and connect. We're going to select SSH. I'm going to copy this, right? So I'm going to put this side by side so you can see. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to do SSH -a. I'm going to put, since my Jenkins server is a CentOS, so I'm going to put CentOS. Then I'm going to put my Jenkins server IP address, right? My Bastion, oh, sorry. What is happening? Okay, let's start over again. SSH -a. Then put CentOS at, we put the IP address, right? This IP address. I'm going to copy it and paste it. This is the IP address of the Bastion host, and we are logged into the Bastion host. The next thing is that from the Bastion host, we're going to log into, from the Bastion host, we're going to log into our Jenkins server. So we're going to do SSH, and we're going to change again. Our Jenkins server is a CentOS server, and if you guys can see, you're going to see that this is a private IP address. So we're going to press enter, and we are logged in as in our Jenkins server. I'm going to do sudo -i to be the root, right? So the next thing is we're going to install Docker, right? And to install Docker, we're going to go on the search bar and we do install Docker on CentOS 7, right? And you guys are going to see over here, we have a documentation wire, right? So we just have to start starting installation wire, right? What I'm going to do is just simply copy and paste it. Then the next thing, I copy and I paste it. Yes. Yes. And it is installing. So we have our Docker installed. Let's start the daemon set, the service, right? Let's make sure that it is unable, right? And let's do system just to make sure that it's working properly, right? CTL status Docker. And you guys can see it is running properly and it is what? Enabled. So our Docker is installed. Docker is installed in our Jenkins server. And the other way to see that, you can do Docker PS and you're going to see it's empty. So Docker is working on in our Jenkins server. The next thing to do is to make sure that we install Maven, Git, GitHub, and Maven plugin, Docker plugins, right? So we're going to go to our Jenkins. Let's make it bigger. We're going to go to our Jenkins server, right? This is our Jenkins code, the URL, right? So I'm going to go to manage Jenkins. Don't worry about this one. So I'm going to go to plugins, and over here I'm going to go to available plugins, and I'm going to search for Docker. I make sure that I'm going to click on Docker. I can do Docker pipeline. I can do Docker API. I'm going to do Docker build steps, and I'm going to do Cloud B and push, right? You can add as much as you want. If you want to use Docker slave, you can add them, but I'm going to stop there, right? The next thing is I'm going to look for Git, right? I'm going to look for Git. I'm going to see the Git server right here. I'm going to also do the last two. Then I'm going to look for GitHub. And you guys can see that we can use GitHub integration if you want. But yeah, I'm just going to use that one. I'm going to also take pipeline GitHub, right? We may not use GitHub, but that's good practice to have them installed as plugins. So the next thing is to make sure that we have Maven, right? And I'm going to search for Maven, and we're going to use Maven integration, and we're going to use Maven pipeline, right? That is enough, right? Those two are enough. You can go over the rest of it, but those two are enough. And what I'm going to do is that I'm just going to click on install. And we're going to wait a little bit for it to be installed, and I'm going to pause the video and come back when it's done installing. So it is done installing, right? Let's go back to the top, right? So now we install Git, Docker, Maven, GitHub plugins, right? So let's go and set up our Maven, right? So to set up our Maven, we're going to go to manage Jenkins. Then we're going to go to tools. Then we're going to look for Maven, right? We're going to click, you're going to see Maven installation right here, and we're going to click on add Maven. We're just going to call it Maven. You can call it whatever you want, right? And for me, you can use the version 3.5, 9.5, but I'm going to use the version that works for me was 3.8.6, right? And I'm going to click on apply and save, right? So that's it. My Maven is already set up, right? So the next thing to do is to make sure that we are creating our CI/CD pipeline workflow, right? We're going to use Jenkinsfile to do that. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to bring back my Visual Studio, and I'm going to paste this one like this, right? And what I'm going to, let me bring my Visual Studio over here. We don't really need this one anymore, but I'm going to bring this. Let me make it right here. So this is our Visual Studio code at the right, and at the left, we're going to have our Jenkins server, right? So the next thing I'm going to do is that I'm going to click on new file, and I'm going to call it Jenkinsfile, right? So the first thing I'm going to do is to make sure that we have our pipeline. I'm going to start with pipeline. And I'm going to use agent. I'm going to use an agent, right? It's going to be any agent, right? Let me put it properly. I'm going to put it like this. I'm going to tab it. Then I'm going to put a tools, and the only tool we're going to use is going to be Maven. And the name that we put over here, this name, Maven right here, make sure that you put it right here. We can change it. We can put Maven 1 over here just to make sure that you are not confused. We're going to put Maven 1 over here and we're going to put Maven 1 over here, right? That is our tool, the tool we're going to use. We're going to use for our build, we're going to use an environment, right? We're going to use environment. And that's going to be the image underscore tag, because we're going to do a build, right? So we need to have a build number. And it's going to be dynamic. That's why we are defining this environment variable. It's going to be build underscore number, right? We're going to use the build number as our image tag. That's pretty much what I'm saying. The next thing we're going to do is to put stages, right? So the first stage gonna be what we call, we can name it whatever you want, but I'm gonna name it Maven clean. That is the first thing we did, right? So we did Maven clean, and I'm gonna open the bracket and close them. So what we did on this stage was what? We only pass a command, right? So we're gonna do steps, and we're going to pass the command. The command was, since it was a shell command, we're going to do sh, and we're going to do mvn. That was mvn clean, right? That is the first thing we did. So I'm going to save it, and I'm going to copy everything. I'm going to paste in next. The next stage was Maven package, right? And the command that we passed was Maven package. Let's call this one Maven build, or package is same thing. Let's just save it, right? And what I'm going to do is to push this code to our repository, right? I'm going to do git add. I'm going to do git commit -m. The message going to be adding Jenkinsfile. And I'm going to do git push. So it is push. But usually we're going to use another branch, but since it's just for testing, so since it's just like a YouTube video, so I'm using the main branch, but you should create a new branch where you're going to do some testing, right? So the main branch should stay pristine, right? So if I refresh this one, I'm going to see that I do have what? I do have two new files, Docker Compose and Jenkinsfile, right? So let's integrate our GitHub repository to our Jenkins, right? What I'm going to do is that I'm going to copy this code. I'm going to copy this HTTPS and I copy it. And I'm going to come over here. Let me make this one bigger. Sorry. I'm going to come to new item. I'm going to create a project, right? Let's call it Eagle 1, right? And I'm going to do a pipeline. I'm going to press enter. Okay, sorry. Oh, the project already exists. Let me delete this one. Okay, let's change the name of the project. Let's change the name. New item. We're gonna call it Eagle One project, right? And it's gonna be a pipeline. And we press enter. So over here, I'm gonna come over here on pipeline, and I'm gonna change this one. You say pipeline stream, but we're gonna use pipeline stream from SCM, right? And I'm gonna use Git, and this is where I'm gonna paste it. And if you have credential, if you are using like a private GitHub repository, you should add credentials, right? But since we are not using it, it's a public, so I don't need to add credentials. And make sure that the specific branch, you put the specific branch over here. For me, the branch is main. So I'm going to come back here and I'm going to change this one and I put main. And it's going to look for a file called Jenkinsfile. Let's just make sure that we have it. It is right there, right? So we're going to apply and save it. So now we have this one. Let's go ahead and see if we can. Let me make this one a little bit bigger. Let's go ahead and see if we can build our first job using Jenkins. And it's going to fail for sure. And when it's fail, it's saying what? So you guys can see that we're having some issues, right? So I think that the issue is due to the fact that um, we need to install Git on our Jenkins server, right? So I'm going to do, because when you read the error, it's talking about cannot run program Git, right? So let's install Git in our Jenkins server. We're going to do install git-y, and let's see if it's going to fix the issue. Okay, let's go ahead and try to run it again, and let's see what's going to happen. Now let's see the error again. So it's saying the reference is wrong. Let's see what we have right now. We should have main. I don't know what happened. We should have main like this and apply it. Let's run it again and see. Now it is showing another error. Okay, you guys see it says tool Maven doesn't have any install Maven when configure. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's go to the dashboard, manage Jenkins tools, and let's go down and see. Oh, we need to name it Maven 1 right here. Sorry about it. So we're gonna name it Maven 1. Let's go back to our build, right? Sorry. So it's gonna be Eagle 1 project. And let's try again. And this time it is working. I put these steps to make sure that you understand that you need to install Git, Jenkins, and Docker in Sorry, you need to install Docker and Git in our Jenkins server. That's what I wanted to say. You may not install Maven directly, but for me, the best thing to do is to install Git and Docker directly to the server. And we're going to have another error coming next, right? That is why I'm telling you to install it directly. When we're going to decide to build a Docker image, we're going to see an error, and install it directly to the server, to the Jenkins server, going to help us fix the error faster and easily. So it looks like it succeed. So that means this one is working properly, right? And let's go step by step and see if it ran the tool. It's always a lot. Let's see what happened, right? So you see, it's pulling and it's running the first command, Maven clean. Cleaning. Oh, it's too much. It's running the second command, Maven package, right? And everything succeed, right? So the next thing we need to do is to make sure that we connect our SonarQube, right? So that our SonarQube can do a static test analysis, right? So that's going to be the next step. So I'm going to go on administration, then I'm going to go on security, then I'm going to click on user, right? Then over here, I'm going to click on token, right? Then I'm going to give a token a name, right? I'm going to call it Jenkins. You can put no expiration, right? But I'm going to do 30 days. It's up to you. And I'm going to generate a token, right? I'm going to copy that token. What I'm going to do next, right, is that I'm going to go to Jenkins. I'm going to go to dashboard, manage Jenkins, credentials, system. Then I'm going to click on add credential, right? Then I'm going to call this one SonarQube, or it's going to be secret text. And I'm going to paste my secret wire. My ad is going to be Sonar token, right? I'm going to do the same thing for the description, right? And I'm going to click on create. So now we have this already, right? So the next thing I'm going to do is to go to manage Jenkins and go to tools and see if we have Sonar somewhere. I'm pretty sure we don't have anything, right? So what we're going to do is to manage Jenkins, plugins, available plugin, and we're going to look for SonarQube. And we're going to take these two SonarQubes and we're going to install them. I'm going to pause the video and come back when it's done installing. Okay, it is done installing, right? So we're going to go back to manage Jenkins, tools, and we should see SonarQube somewhere. And we have SonarQube scanner right here, right? So we see that we have SonarQube scanner installation, as I said, right? But we are not going to use this one, right? This one is not, we are not going to use it for this project. We're going to use it later. I just wanted to make sure that you understand how to install SonarQube plugins. what we're going to do is that we're going to go back to manage Jenkins. We're going to go to system, and we're going to look for SonarQube server, right? We're going to check. We're going to check on variable, and we're going to click on add, right? Over here, this is where we're going to name it, right? We're going to give it a name. We're going to name it SonarQube, right? And I'm going to put the SonarQube URL right here. I'm just going to copy this one, copy it, and paste it right here, right? And we need credentials, right? So we're going to use the server authentication token, right? So after doing this, we're going to click on apply and save. Right? So the next thing is to use our SonarQube, right, in our Jenkins file. So how do we do that? I'm going to add another stage, but I'm going to copy it because I already did it and it's a little bit long. So I'm going to come back right here as another stage. I'm going to paste this. Let me copy all and uncheck them, right? This is the stage. These are the two stages. The first stage is going to be to do the static code analysis, and what we are doing, we put quality gate check, right? That means that if the code fail, we are not going to go to the next step, right? So in order for us to use that, we need to do something else, right? We're going to go back to our SonarQube, right? And we're going to go to administration again. Then we go to configuration. Then we select webhook, right? And over here, we're going to create a webhook. The name going to be Jenkins. You can name it whatever you want, right? And the URL going to be the Jenkins URL, right? It's going to be Jenkins at that anielibo.com/SonarQube that webhook / right? And if you want, you can put a secret, but we are not going to put any secret right here. Oh, okay, it's going to be https:// we're going to click on create, or I can just simply copy this and come over here and paste it, right? It's going to be this, that SonarQube -webhook, right? So no secret, and I'm going to click on create. So everything looks good now. Let's go ahead and go back to and push this one, but let's double check to make sure that everything is looking fine. We have open, we have close. And how did we call our server? We're going to go to manage SonarQube server. We're going to go to system. We call it SonarQube, right? So I'm going to copy it right here, and I'm going to put it right here, the name of our server. And I'm going to save it, and everything else looks fine. So I'm going to get git add, then git commit, and the message is going to be adding SonarQube. Then I'm going to do git push. and it has been pushed. Just to double check, I'm going to click over here, and you're going to see that we have our SonarQube step added, right? So let's go ahead and go to our project and try to run it. Let me make it bigger and try to build it now. And let's see the output. It is doing static code analysis right now. And if you come over here and go to project and refresh it, you're going to see a project. Let's wait a little bit. And it succeeds. If I refresh this and I click on project, you're going to see that we have a new project, right? And the project is called Knode, right? And as you guys can see during the static code analysis, we see that we have 2 bugs, but it has passed, right? It has passed. We have 2 bugs, 0 vulnerability, 0 hotspot, 0 the code smell is A, 0 coverage, and 0 duplication, right? So you can do that, or you can go over it and see it in details, right? You can see in details issues. You can see issues right here. You can see hotspots and so on, right? So you're going to come back to project. So that means we have a DevSecOps. We did a DevSecOps, right? We did some security check. We checked that our code is passing the static code analysis, right? So we are good. The next step is that we need to build our Docker image, right? And to do that, we need some Docker credentials, right? So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to go to dashboard and I'm going to go to manage Jenkins credentials. I'm going to add system global credential. I'm going to add some new credentials, right? And I'm going to call them, it's going to be, let's call it it's going to be Docker credentials, right? Let's call it how am I going to call it? Let's call it DevOps training school, right? This is my username and my password. I'm going to put it, if I remember it well. Then I'm going to put what? I'm going to put the name. I'm going to call it Docker underscore creds to say Docker credentials, right? And I'm going to use them, and I'm going to use the same thing for the description, right? Docker creds. So now I can create it. I'm going to go back to manage Jenkins. Then I'm going to add a new steps, right? The new step going to be building our Docker. We're going to build our Docker image and push it, right? So let's see, it's closing wire. So we're going to add it wire. So the next step, let me make it a little bit bigger. The next step is what? We're going to log in using credentials, right? I already put the wire Docker underscore cred, and you put the URL of your Active Factory. Ours is Docker, so it's going to be the same. And you put the name, right, of our Docker image. Our Docker image is going to be DevOps Training School underscore Knode Jenkins, right? And this build number is going to be our tag, and we use it from wire. right? So, and we're going to push it, right? We're going to push it to our repository. Then let me remove these steps. We're going to talk about this step later. So I'm going to run this, right? But before I do that, I want to log into my Docker Hub, right? I'm going to do Docker Hub, and I'm going to log in. I have a Docker image right here, right? That is 6 steps. I'm going to delete everything. I'm going to go to setting and I'm going to delete it, right? So this Docker image has been deleted, right? So we're going to build another Docker image now. We can do it that way, or we can do another thing. We can just do keynote and we do Jenkins, then we put project 1. Or we can do keynote and we put eagle 1. Let's put eagle 1, right? And we're going to do the same thing right here. Eagle 1, right? Let's save it and let's push it, right? We're going to do git add. Oh, sorry. Git add. Then we do git commit -m. And as a comment, we're going to do adding Docker steps. Okay. Then we're going to do git push. It has been pushed, right? Let's make sure that we have our GitHub ready. Oh, sorry. It's right here. And let's see, we have that steps already right there. So we're going to go to our Jenkins and we're going to go to our project, oh, sorry, dashboard. And we're going to click on Eagle 1 project, right? As you guys can see, it paused for 30 seconds and it was success, right? So we're going to build it again, but this time we're going to have a new steps, right? And let's see the output or the logs. It's going to say failure, and this is what I was telling you earlier, right? And if you guys can see, you're going to see that it's going to be the var this issue, right? Permission deny. How I fix it? And this is just like we have two of fixing it, right? The easiest way is going to be changing the permission, right? I'm going to do share mode 777 and I paste this one, right? And let's run it again. And the other way of fixing the issue is just to change the owner and put Jenkins as the owner, the user, right? And we leave Docker as the group. So he was able to log in successfully this time. And it is running this command docker build. After running the docker build is run docker push. And as you can see, the tag is what? 8. And this tag is related to the build number, right? The build number is 9. So if you go to Docker Hub, we're going to see that we have a new Docker image push to our Active Factory, right? And if you click on it, you're going to see that the tag is 8. The tag is coming from the build number, okay? If we do build again, you're going to see that we're going to have a new tag, and that new tag going to be 9 because the build is the build number 9. So the tag is related to the build. This helps you know how many builds you have and all that. But you can change it your way. You can use another thing as tag. It's up to you. So let's wait for the SonarQube analysis and testing and the quality gate check to pass. So if I refresh this, you're going to see that the tag is 9 now, and it was pushed like few seconds ago, right? So this is how we can use our Jenkinsfile to build our pipeline, right? We were able to build our pipeline. The next thing is that since we have our Docker image already pushed, we need to deploy it, right, to our Kubernetes environment, right? And we have many ways of doing that, right? What I'm going to do is that I'm going to create a new repository that I'm going to clone locally. Then I'm going to start working on that in the way that everything I'm going to do is going to be in that repository that I can push to GitHub. And I'm going to apply them so that we can have it in our Kubernetes cluster. And by the way, this is our Kubernetes cluster though we did last time. We go on K9S. We're going to see that we have our Kubernetes cluster ready, right? And we have how many nodes? We have 3 nodes, right? All of them are ready. So the next thing is to build our YAML file to push to deploy our application to Kubernetes. So let me make this one bigger. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to do GitHub. And I'm going to go to my main directory. And I'm going to click on, I'm going to create a new one, right? I'm going to call it Eagle1. Let's call it YAML, right? Eagle1 YAML. Let's call it YAML file, right? We're going to add a README and we click on create, right? So now I'm going to clone it locally, right? I'm going to open a new Windows. Let's make sure that I cd to desktop and I'm going to do git clone. I have it locally, right? Let me open another Visual Studio Code so that I can work with that one. New Windows. File, open folder. I'm going to go to desktop and I'm going to look for Eagle1 YAML file. Okay, so now we are good. Let's put this one aside for now. We're going to come back to it and let's see how we can change this one, right? So Let me put this side by side with the with this one. So we're going to open a new terminal where we can do the research, right? So the first thing we're going to do is to have our web app, that YAML file, right? And you can go online and look for Kubernetes application YAML, right? You can go and look at it, or we already have our file ready. I'm just going to copy them, right? And I'm going to copy them. You can have the link. I'm going to paste it right here. So this is going to be a deployment. It's not going to be a pod. And the name of my application going to be my app. And the strategy we're going to use is we create, right? We have 5 replicas, but we're going to use only 2 replicas. And the selector, we need it to match app colon my app, right? And the template going to be labeled as the same thing as the selector, right? So that we're going to have the same label, right? And this is why we're going to change it. The container name going to be my app, right? And the Docker image going to be this one. We're going to change, we're going to select this one and put it right here. Sorry. DevOps training school hyphen keynote that eagle 1. But we also need a tag, right? So we're going to put tag, and we're going to put, let's put tag 9, right? 9, right? Our container pod is going to be pod 80, right? And we set up our environment variable, right? This is the name of our service, but we're going to come back to it later, okay? So let's just call our database service my-db.service, right? And this is fine. We're going to save it. The next thing we're going to do is to, in order for our application to have a database, we need to create a deployment or a stateful set, right? We're going to create, let's call it database.yaml. We can also call it mongo.yaml if you want. It's up to you. So I already have it set. So I'm just going to copy this and paste it right here. Right? And what I'm going to do is that I'm going to uncheck all these. And we're going to go over it, right? So let's go over this. Let's go over here first and look for Kubernetes application, right? And let's put PVC. Let's see how we're going to define the PVC. I know how to do that, but I want you guys to know. You see, it is on similar volume mount, right? So we're gonna have to switch it like this. The volume mount we're gonna call it storage 1, right? And the volume going to be on the same level as container, right? So it's going to be like this, and I'm going to put it like this, and persistent like this, and the claim like this. So what we are doing is that we are creating a deployment, right? We decided to go with deployment, but you can go with stateful set if you want, because we're only going to have like one database, so we don't need like slaves database and all that. But if you need to have like a more specific, you can use stateful set, right? So we're going to go and we're going to name it my-db, right? We put the labels and we put the selector. We say that this is the selector we want to use to catch this deployment, right? So the container going to be named mydb and the image going to be mongo, right? We open the port, right? The container port. And this is a storage because we need persistent volume, right? So we need to have a volume, and this is why we define the volume, right? And our volume the claim gonna be db-pvc, right? And it's gonna be mount. So that means that we need a pvc. We're gonna go and do pvc that YAML, right? And I'm gonna copy the pvc and paste it right here, right? And as a storage class, I'm going to use Longhorn, as we saw on last video, right? So this one is enough because it's just for testing, but you may have more, right? And our persistent volume claim going to be db-pvc. This name should be higher, should be the same name on the database. So we already have our database. The next thing we want is to have what we call services, right? If you want to talk to a database, you can talk to a database through a service, right? So we're going to create a service for our database. We're going to do db-svc for service that YAML, and I'm going to paste this one, right? And this is the name of our service, right? We don't need to change anything. This is the cluster IP, and that is fine. So the next thing is that we also need to talk to our application. So we need a service to enable us to talk to our application. So I'm going to create that service as well, right? I'm going to do my app or app-svc.yaml. And I'm going to paste this one, right? And it's going to be good. And this, you can put a load balancer, a node port, but my tab gonna be, I'm gonna remove this one and I'm gonna put a cluster IP, right? So mine gonna be a cluster IP. Hold on, please. It's gonna be a cluster IP. So now we are good, right? But the next thing is that if you want our application to be accessible externally, we need what we call an ingress resource, right? So we're going to create an ingress resource. We're going to call it ingress.yaml. And I'm just going to copy this and paste it right here, right? So make sure that the cluster issuer is the issuer you have and the ingress class is the class that you have, right? And my application going to be app.nil.com. You can call it whatever you want, right? And the prefix going to be the path type going to be prefix, right? And the service or the backend going to be my-app-service, right? Make sure that this is the name of the application service, right? So I'm going to come to app service over here and make sure that this name is the same name over here. And I also going to make sure that on the app service that this port is the same port over here, right? Then I put my TLS and so on, right? Then I save it, right? So my YAML files are ready to deploy my application. But here's the one thing. We can deploy it manually, right? Or we can deploy it using ArgoCD. What I'm going to do next is to deploy it manually just to make sure that you understand how it is deployed, right? Then the next steps, I'm going to deploy it using ArgoCD. So let's go ahead and make this one bigger. what I'm going to do is to go to terminal and create a namespace, right? I'm going to do kubectl, create namespace. I'm going to call it eagle1. Then I'm going to do kubectl. I'm going to apply everything I just did. In the namespace, call eagle1. And let me make this one like this and go back to my terminal and go to namespace, and I'm going to look for eagle1 is wire. I'm going to click on it. As you guys can see, we are having our application deployed. The database is getting ready. So what happened is that my PVC was very low, so I updated to 5 gig and I redeploy it, and it looks like it is working fine. So the issue was the PVC, right? So as you can see, the database still the same. I didn't change it, but the PVC I changed it. And if you do PVC, you're going to see that I changed it to 5 gig. So the PVC was the issue. So now that we are able to deploy it like this, right? The next thing is that we don't want to deploy it manually, right? So I'm going to delete it. I'm going to do kubectl delete everything, right? It's going to be delete everything. And you're going to see that we don't have any pawn eagle eye, right? So the next thing I'm going to do is that we're going to use ArgoCD. And you guys know we already have ArgoCD ready, right? Our ArgoCD is ready. And now what I'm going to do is that I need to push this, since it's working and we know that it's working properly, right? We need to push this to our repo, right? We're going to do git add. We're going to do git commit -m, adding YAML files, right? And we're going to do git push. And he has pushed it to our GitHub repository. So the next step is that we're going to link our GitHub repository with our ArgoCD. So we're going to integrate GitHub and ArgoCD. So now let's integrate GitHub with ArgoCD, right? Over here, you're going to see that we push and everything is push, right? So the next step is to go to ArgoCD. Let me make this one bigger. To go to Argo, I don't think we don't need this one anymore. I can close it. So let me make this one bigger. We're going to go to application, new app, and we're going to name it eagle1, right? It's going to be the default one, right? We want it to sync automatically, right? We want it to self-healing, and we want auto create namespace, right? Even though we already created it, right? And let's go. We need the URL, right? So we're going to copy this and put it right here. And the path to the file is going to be just that, right? Since it's right there. Since it's like right there, there's no like a directory, or so it's going to be /that. And the destination going to be our cluster, right? We may have a lot of clusters, right? And let's put it in eagle1, right? The namespace is going to be eagle1, right? And the directory, you can include it if you want, but for us, that is enough, right? And I'm going to click on create. Oh, okay, it says the metadata, so it should be lowercase, right here, and click on create. This is ArgoCD deploying our application. As you guys can see, it is deploying the same application we just deploy using Git kubectl applied though. So you guys can see ArgoCD is very good. It's giving us some details. As you guys can see, this is a challenge and everything is good. If you click on application, you're going to see that our application is sync and it is healthy, right? And this is our pod. If you click on our pod, you're going to see that we are deploying the tag 9, right? And we have our secret. This is the database pod. It is Mongo and it is running, right? So this is how we deploy our application to ArgoCD, but we're still missing something, right? We need to go on AWS and we need to go on Route 53 host, NIL host. Then we need to come over here and look and create a record. We said our app gonna be, if you check over here, it's gonna be app.nilebo.com, right? So we're gonna use it right here, app.nilebo.com, and we're gonna use our, let me bring back our cluster, right? And we're gonna go to ingress, right? And we're gonna use the same ingress address, right? IP address right here, and we're gonna paste it right here. I'm gonna put 1 minute and I'm gonna click and create a record, right? While it is creating the record, we can test it, right? Let me copy this. You can copy it, or you can just come to ArgoCD and do a click over here, or just click on this one, or do the click over here, right? You're going to see that the challenge is still there, so it's not, this URL is not accessible. Let's go back to our ingress and you're going to see that we have a challenge, right? Why? So let's wait to let's wait a little bit. That challenge going to be solved and we're going to move to accessing our application. So let's wait a little bit. So the challenge still there, so we're going to wait a little bit. But if you go to our app, you see that it's accessible now, but it's not secure. So it's not secure. So we are waiting for the challenge to be solved so that it can be secure, right? So let's keep waiting a little bit, and as you see, the challenge is getting solved. So let's wait a little bit again. So it looks like it is working properly. Let's try it again. It took like 10-15 minutes to get ready. Let's refresh it. You guys see it's working properly. I'm going to copy these. And I'm going to close all these. And I'm going to open a new window. And I'm going to paste it. Yay! Our application is working using ArgoCD as a deployment, right? But let's do it. Let's do something again. Let's build. Let's say the developer has changed something and let's build it again. Oh, I need to refresh it. So let's build it again. Build now. So the new tag gonna be 10. If we go to Docker and refresh it, we're gonna see that the new tag is 10, right? So how can we update these YAML files? We're gonna go to the app, and over here we need to update the tag, right? It is 9. So what we're gonna do is that instead of 9, we're gonna remove 9 and put 10. And let's wait. As right now, if you describe the port, you're gonna see that the tag is 9, right? So here's the thing. We can wait 3 minutes, or we can come over here and click on sync. We're gonna click on sync, right? And it's gonna sync it. If we describe it again, we're gonna see that it's 9, but it's not picking up yet. Let's wait a little bit. Let's go to app. Let's go to sync. Let's print it, right? And let's force it. And let's see what's gonna happen. If we describe it, it's still 9. Let's wait a little bit. Let's just wait a little bit. Let's try it again. Let's refresh it again. Let's print. Let's run it again. Let's go to detail. And as you guys can see, it is 10 now. So that means that every time we're going to push our Jenkins, we need to go to our YAML file and look for the web app YAML and update the tag. So we don't want to do that every time, right? So we need to find a way of fixing it. And we're going to fix it using Jenkins, right? We're going to go back to our Jenkins, this one, and we're going to add 2 more steps, right? Let me make this one bigger, and I'm going to add 2 more steps, right? And the first steps going to be adding the git clone. We want to clone. We want to clone our this. Let me show you. We want to clone our git eagle one YAML file, right? We want to clone it in our Jenkins. So let me copy this. I already have how to do that. I'm going to open this one, and I'm going to add a new steps, right? The new stage going to be git clone, right? And we want to clone what we want to clone. We want to clone this one. Let me copy it. Let me make it side by side. We want to clone, I think it's this one, GitHub YAML file. So we want to clone git eagle1, sorry, hyphen yaml hyphen file, right? We want to clone it, right? And we put some value, right? If it succeeds, that's fine. If it's failed, we want to see the error, right? We also need our GitHub repo, right? We need to have our GitHub repo. And let me go to my repo first and copy it, right? I'm going to copy it and I'm going to come here. And I'm going to copy this. I'm going to save it, right? This is our repo. So now we already add this one, right? What we need to add is this. We need to add one more step after Docker build. That step gonna delete. That step gonna delete our repository, right? It's gonna be eagle one hyphen yaml hyphen file. It's gonna delete that repo every time, so we don't keep the same repo locally, right? And the next steps is to test this one. But before we test it, we need, over here you see that we have a credential that we call GitHub, right? So we need to add it. So I'm gonna go, let me push it first. Okay, you can push it. We're gonna do git add, then we're gonna do git commit, adding repo, then we're gonna do git push. Sorry, git push. So now I'm gonna go to my Jenkins. You guys know what? Let's go to our GitLab repo. Let's go to settings and let's look for credentials. We don't have anything right here. Let's go to over here and let's go to settings and look for developer settings and look for personal token. I'm going to take the classic token. You can take whatever you want, right? I'm going to take the classic token. I'm going to call it, let's call it eagle1, right? It's going to expire in 30 days. You can make it indefinitely if you want. And I'm gonna put some like scopes for our token, right? I think that is enough. Let me put this. That is enough. I'm going to click on create a token, right? I'm going to copy this token. This token is very important, right? Then I'm going to go to Jenkins. I'm going to go to dashboard, manage Jenkins, credentials. Then I'm going to add some more credential, right? I'm going to click on add credentials. And I'm going to put the username. The username going to be my GitHub, right? And I'm going to put my password. And the password going to be this token. This token going to be our password. And if you want to go to profile, and this is our username, right? This is our username. And we're going to call it this one GitHub. Let's give it the same name GitHub as the description, right? We click on create. So now we have GitHub, right? And let's go back to our Jenkinsfile, right? We already have it right there, right? GitHub. This GitHub is the ID, is the credential ID that we put right here. This GitHub, right? So we can go back over here and go to our project and run it again, right? It should be able to pick up the repo and add it. Let's see what's gonna happen. So the step gonna just be like git clone, but we want to see if we are able to clone it, right? So let's see. So you guys see we have a new step. It's called git clone, right? And we are able to clone it. So that is good. That stage pass, right? The next thing is that we're going to add another stage that's going to help us do some changes, right? And I'm going to explain it. Let's go back right here. The next stage, what we're going to do is that we're going to change, right? We're going to make sure that we change our tag. So instead of doing it manually, Jenkins going to change the tag for us, right? So for that, we're going to make sure that we put the right user right here. I think it's going to be the guru, right? I think it's going to be the guru. Let me see my GitHub repo. It's going to be the DevOps guru 1. So I'm going to copy it, right? And come here. And I'm going to put it right here. That is the username. And let's see the name. I'm going to go back. This is how we do that though. Let's see the name. You can go over here and do profile. Or you're going to see some details, right? If you can go on edit and you're going to see more details, right? Let's see the email. Let's go to settings and let's see our emails. This is where you see the email, right? I'm just going to copy this email. I'm going to come back to right here and I'm going to paste that email right here. Right? So I'm going to paste that email right there and everything looks good. The credentials looks good. GitHub. For me, it looks good, right? You don't need these steps. So what we're going to do is that we're going to see where we are just to make sure that we are in the right repo, right? We're going to do PWS, then we're going to see the build number and we're going to cut the web application, right? And we're going to call it web app.yaml. Make sure that is the same. Web app.yaml, make sure that is the same as what we gave a name, right? And then we're going to change it, right? And we're going to look for our Docker image. What is our Docker image? It's this one, right? We're going to copy this. We're going to come here and we're going to say everywhere you see this. Right? And let me change it again. Wire. So we're going to use C to do that for us, right? And after that, we're going to cut it just to make sure that the tag has changed, right? And we're going to push it to our repository. And let's copy our repository again. Let's copy this. And let's go back. Wire. And you see wire. So this one going to be, we're going to change it. And we're going to put this one. We're going to copy this one and paste it wire. Right, and we're going to change this one, and it's going to be the Go one. That is the username, right? And let's go over it and make sure that everything looks good. This is Go one. We're going to change it and push it. Let me fix it. It looks like we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We are missing some stuff. Let's start all over again. Not all over again. We're gonna have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, that's a lot of steps. Let me fix it again. Let's go over it step by step. Let's go over it step by step. Okay. We have this. Okay, I see. So the first one going to be this one. Git config -name and password, and we're going to close it. Yes. Then we're going to go with credentials. We do this, we open it, then we close it, then the blue close the blue, the pink close the pink, the yellow close the yellow. Yeah, it looks good now. I save it and I'm going to push it again, right? Git add, git commit, and git push. So let's cross fingers and go wire and see if it's gonna bail. Let's run some bail. As you guys can see, if you go over here, if everything works, you're gonna see 11 or 12 wire. So the bill is 12. We should see 12 right here at the end. So let's see. Oh, it's failing. Okay, let me fix it. I'm gonna come back. So he has failed, and let's go over it again. And what I say is that I'm using master over here. It should be main, not master, right? Because the branch is, when I come here, the branch is main. So we need to specify the branch right here. I'm gonna save it, and I'm gonna try to push it again and see what's gonna happen, right? Let's push it, and let's go back to our Jenkins and run a build again. And let's cross fingers. Hopefully it's gonna pass. Almost there. Okay, let's see the output to see why it's failing, right? Let's go all the way down. Inside wire. Okay, let's see. We need to cd. Let's cd. Let's change the directory, okay? We're gonna do d hyphen. I'm gonna go to that directory. It's gonna be eagle 1.yaml that file. We're gonna cd into this. I think it's gonna fix the issue. And let's go back and see. And let's build it again. And let's see what's gonna happen. Okay, it's working now. So I needed to cd to that directory as I said, right? This is how you learn. And yeah, I was able to do that. So let's go over here and we see that the repo says the tag is 10. Let's refresh it a little bit. And we see now that the tag is 17, right? So that means it's going to take a little bit of time, like 3 minutes to reflect right here. It's still 10. So let's go ahead and I don't like to use refresh, but I'm going to go ahead and use refresh. And let's see what's going to happen. And we're going to see that the tag is 17, right? Let's push again. Let's do another build. So now we don't need to do anything. We just need to build. If the developer push the code, it's going to build a new image, a new tag, and it's going to push it to the repo. It's going to take our YAML file, update the image repo in the YAML file, and push it so that it can be deployed in our ArgoCD. It's going to take 3 minutes, but if you don't like it, if you don't want to wait 3 minutes, it's up to you, right? But ArgoCD is saying every like 2 to 3 minutes, so we're going to leave it like that. I don't want to overdo it, but you can use webhook in the way that as soon as the change is there, it's going to update it directly. But let's leave it this way, and let's see. If I refresh it, it's going to be 18. I can come over here and click on refresh, right? And if I refresh, you're going to see that we have 18 right here. So, but I don't like to use refresh. I like to use sync, right? So that means that our CI/CD pipeline is up and running. So one thing I want to show you guys is that it's going to be updating automatically. So I'm going to build another one. It's going to be 19, and we just have to wait. It's going to take like a minute or 2 or 3 to be synced, and we're going to wait for it to be synced. So as you guys can see, it is keep going. It keep going. Now it's 19. Let's wait. If you see why it's still 18, let's just wait, right? Let's leave it like 2 to 3 minutes. And you guys going to see that it's going to update automatically. And this is our deployment, right? In our deployment, it is sync, right? So you can sync our deployment if you want to, but let's leave it alone and let's see how it's going to update those images automatically. Because the main goal is over here is to automate everything so that we don't have to come and do anything, right? The developer push the code, is going to be built, it's going to be done automatically, and is able to see the change few minutes later, right? So let's give it a time. So we still have like 1 to 2 minutes to go. Just wait, just give it a time. It's 18. As you guys can see, the last thing is giving you the detail, who push it, and what is the IP, the email address, and what is the command to the git push. Let's wait a little bit. Let's give it a time. Still 18. Let's give it a time. Let's give it a time. As you guys can see, it saw it, it started, it is progressing, and it is done. If you see over here, we're going to see that it's 19. So this is how it is done, right? Every 3 minutes it's going to sync. Every 3 minutes is going to sync. Every 3 minutes is going to sync. So this is how it is done, and it is done automatically. So, but we still have one issue, right? The issue is that we still have to come over here every time the developer pushed a change. Let's leave it this one alone and go back to our repo. In the project, right? If the developer pushed the change, right, we still have to come to Jenkins and click on build. We don't want to do that. We don't want to do that, right? How to fix it? So in order to integrate Jenkins with GitHub, the first thing we're going to do is that we're going to go to our project, then we go to configure, right? And over here, we're going to look for build trigger, right? And on the build trigger, we're going to see GitHub hook trigger, right? For this SCM polling, right? We're going to click on it, right? And we're going to apply and save it, right? Then we're going to copy our Jenkins URL, right? We're going to come to our GitHub repo, right? And we're going to go to settings, right? And we're going to look for webhooks. Then we're going to add a webhook, right? And on the payload URL, we're just going to put our Jenkins server name. Then we're going to put GitHub hyphen webhook, right? Then we're going to select, you can put the secret if you want and all that. Then we're going to select that we want every time the code is pushed, Jenkins going to detect it, right? And we click on add webhook, right? As you guys can see, we are done. And it was able to ping and it is succeed, right? So let's do something, right? Let's change something in our code, right? Let's change something. Let's add a file. I'm just going to add a file. I'm just going to add any file, right? I'm going to put any content, right? I'm going to commit it. So the developer push it. Let's see if Jenkins is going to detect it. You see, Jenkins has detected it and it is building it automatically. So with this, our CI/CD pipeline is automate. We don't need to do anything. The only time we're gonna wait 3 minutes is when ArgoCD gonna sync with our YAML repository, right? But that one we can leave it alone, right? In case we have an issue, we have time to stop the synchronization, right? So we don't have to do the rollback. So with this, we are waiting a little bit for it to be done, and I'm going to do another test, and you're going to see that our pipeline is done, our CI/CD pipeline. And you guys can see, let's do it again. Let me open this again, and I'm going to pull it. Let's create another file, or let's change this file. Let's put echo, right? And save it. We're going to do git add, git commit. The message is testing automation, right? and we're gonna do git push, right? And let's go to our Jenkins and see. You see, as soon as we push, it is there. It is picking up. So we're gonna wait a little bit. So everything went well. And if we go to ArgoCD, we can see that our project is good, right? And we can come back to Jenkins. To go to ArgoCD, you just have to click over here, right? And if we refresh this one, we're gonna see that we have echo right here. That's good. And it is sync. The only thing is that it's gonna take like 2 to 3 minutes for ArgoCD to sync. By default, it's 3 minutes, but it's gonna take a little bit of time. And with this, the developer just gonna come over here and check if his application is working fine. Let's upload something. Let me upload this one. Let's publish it. Let's refresh it. Let's upload the new file. Maybe it's not picking up. Yeah, it wasn't picking up. I don't know why, but you can see that we are able to upload, and our application is up and running, ready for customer, right? And this is how I did my CI/CD pipeline like 3-4 years ago. But since then, I'm not using Jenkins anymore, right? Or ArgoCD anymore. Since like 2-3 years now, I'm using what we call GitLab. So the next video, I'm going to do the same thing, but using GitLab. So see you at the next video. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and leave a comment, right? And subscribe. See you.